Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of the Analytic Mind podcast. Today, I'm joined by Greg Hamper. Now, Greg's got a really interesting story about how he got into the analytics space. I won't actually go into it. I'll let Greg maybe do a bit of a rundown because it's a pretty cool story. And then is now working in one of the larger organizations in the US, leading some analytics initiatives. So plenty we can go into. I'm excited to hear about the backstory, but also some on the ground, real world applications of analytics deployments and maybe Power BI or Microsoft tools. So yeah, Greg, I'll throw to you. Maybe just give just a quick intro, just to give everyone a heads up. Greg's wasn't always an analytics specialist and has sort of found his way into that area. But I'll throw to you, Greg, maybe to give a bit more background about that.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Sam. And everyone actually for the Enterprise DNA team for having me on. This is great. So right now I work with Parker Hannifin Corporation. I'm a financial analyst in our FP&A team. I've been with Parker for 3 years now, and just through roles of financial analyst in another position, more traditional accounting. And then now within our actual corporation in FP&A. So like you kind of alluded to before, role wasn't traditional. Getting to this point, actually, prior to this, I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years. And I never envisioned myself being where I am today. I'll be completely honest. And that's, It was fun. It was different, but it had nothing to do with data. And this is just really, really exceptional to be here with you today.
Awesome. And look, I think that because the analytics area, the analytics space, and I've talked about this on a number of other discussions I've had on the podcast, is that it's been such an emerging field. So it's opened up a lot of opportunities, and it seems like you've sort of grabbed that with both hands. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you used to actually fly. You're flying helicopters. You're actually a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps, and maybe even was on the president's detail at one point in time.
Yeah. So what I did, I was actually called a crew chief. So there's the pilots and then there's the crew members that are a part of that detachment. And so I was a crew member with they're called B-22 Ospreys. So it was a relatively newer platform. And we kind of introduced that into the presidential flight detail. And it was a really cool initiative to be a part of getting that started up. And then lots of travel, to really cool places. And it was super fun. Yeah. Really, really thankful to be a part of that.
Amazing. And how many, because the Ospreys are they're the helicopters with the two rotors, right?
Yeah.
Those huge beasts. And so, is that because that's not the main helicopter that the president flies in, right? Like that was mainly like a military vehicle. But was it more used in transportation of the president for a while there?
Yeah, we'll do a lot of the transportation of any of the staff, anyone else that comes along with the president.
Right.
It really serves as a mass transportation of people, and it can happen really fast, a lot quicker and more efficiently than the more traditional, smaller helicopter.
Awesome. And so tell me about how that you sort of wrapped up that part of your life and then gradually moved into this next phase. Was it a sudden jump, or did you go back to school, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so I knew getting to the end of it, you kind of make it through 5 years in the military. You're thankful you're at the end. And I was really interested in trying to just, apply myself into something totally new, more of a profession that could, advance in finance, accounting, something like that. And, I was fortunate to have some family that have done something similar. So I just kind of leaned on to them as kind of like a mentorship relationship in that regard. And, really started to fall in love with the finance and accounting. That's really what it boiled down to. And knowing that I was coming back to Ohio, which is where I'm at now. I just found a really good school. My family and I just invested into that college, and I did a corporate finance degree, and with that, landed a position within Parker.
That's one. That's one. And so when you first entered into, say, Parker, were you interviewing based on some analytics experience that you had maybe learned or had done some courses around, or has it been sort of a progression where you went in based on your finance and accounting background and then sort of learned on the job?
Yeah, definitely the latter. So I didn't get much of that analytical experience, through college. It was very traditional in the sense of, finance and accounting, and which is great, a great foundation you build there. And something that Parker Hannifin does amazing, and it totally invests in its team members. And, so if they want to try something new, they're going to just push you, into that opportunity to try that. And there was definitely a culture shift that was happening, just amidst of me starting here.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of, something Parker that does a lot is its acquisitions. It grows a lot through, its external growth as well as its internal growth. But, we had recently acquired, a large corporation at that point in time. And I started through our leadership development program. So it's the series of rotations you go through, and you just get exposure to, operations, operational accounting, traditional accounting, financial analyst roles. And through that, I got to be a part of one of the integration teams. So you see really what a different business operates, not traditionally to what, you're being acquired. And with that, we saw that they were using Power BI. We were not using it. And more analytical, and maybe I shouldn't say the corporation wasn't using it, but, those were within that finance and accounting team weren't currently using that tool. And it started to get some attention with us, and we saw, how much time of the day that they were starting to get back, how centralized their reporting was. And it just really quickly started to click, how much it made sense.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's like, I've seen that happen over and over again. And that's just another nice story there where there's like this, like, it's almost like a light bulb, right? Like you start seeing it, you start seeing the output, and then you're like, wow, okay, this can be automated. We can scale this up. We can do 5 times more. I mean, I would even say, like, that's what I personally felt when I started Enterprise, like just before I ended my corporate roles and started Enterprise DNA. I was like, wow, this is actually quite transformational. And so it's amazing that it's still even happening now. And so, when you saw that, how did that trickle to the sort of decision makers or to the analytics team or to whoever the management group, that this was something that you should pursue more intensively in the organization?
Yeah, so it ended up being a long time, actually. And I say a long time. How fast technology grows, a long time, a year, and it took about a year, for us to start implementing pieces of what we might have seen, them do. And, finding new applications with it. It could be within the reporting structure that you might or traditionally use Power BI, but even more so in Power Query, and then how you're going to use that within Excel. And then some of the way that we interact with, like, our general ledger, we'll load information in through Excel, and a lot of that could be sped up and automated, just through Power Query and Excel. And, for as much as I love doing Power BI specifically, I absolutely love finding ways to, make everyone's job easier through, the ways that we actually interact with some of our systems. And that just happens to be Excel as well.
The scenario you talk about there is quite unique, isn't it? And I'm interested if we could just dive into that. Is that sure. You weren't just building out a Power BI deployment for your own business. You were actually, I guess, integrating Power BI across one business and a merger that you were trying to integrate more. And did you find any learnings from that? Was there any nuances that you had to deal with that, or was it because I presume there's two different data sets? You're having to somehow bring those together.
Yeah.
Two different IT infrastructures. So yeah, absolutely. Maybe just elaborate on a few of the challenges or a few of the learnings from that.
Yeah. So we have, and at that point in time, two totally different consolidation systems. One will report to, our corporate consolidation system. That's, for sure, like the Bible of that data. That's the truth. But you then have to figure out what does, from a finance and accounting standpoint, what does this account mean on this system? And what does it mean on this system? And if we create metrics, how we might gauge our business off of two different definitions of the same information, we have to merge that, together to just agree upon that and what it's going to be. So, that was the main focus of my period of working with that integration team.
Mm-hmm.
Redefining some of those metrics within, that newly acquired business. And when you do that, you really start to learn a lot about not just how we define our information, but then how other people look at, that metric from outside, of our business standpoint. And it's, there's a lot of growth opportunity in doing that.
I'd imagine, and this is a big topic that I myself have really learned a lot, really thought a lot more deeply about in the past year. And and I'm keen to get your thoughts on it as well, is that it actually really becomes like an architecting challenge, doesn't it? Because it's not like a DAX challenge. It's not like a visualization challenge. It's how do you architect, how do you engineer these new data sources, these new data pipes that you need to get into your analytical, your analytical applications or your analytical distribution platform, which is the Power BI online service, right? And how do you make that integration be seamless for the consumer? Because the consumer doesn't care about two different systems. They don't care about all the other. They just want to see the results. They just want to see the true values so that they can make decisions. So, I'm wondering if you agree with that, and if you have maybe any tips around how you guys did that well, so that others could maybe leverage off that.
Yeah, I think a scenario that really plays into is in a role that followed that was a more traditional accounting role, and with that comes we'll think of setups, reversals, actually entries into your ledger system, and how we want to represent, like you said, a final number, but it's actually comprised of so many different variables and where you're at, within a month, within a year, things like that. So, when you're bringing in, general ledger information, it tends to be either at a point in time or a trend. And it's, it takes actually a lot more back tables than I thought it was going to be to actually build that, that integration and to show net effects, of things that are actually happening. And, when you're an accountant and you learn, all of that different verbiage that's behind there, you start representing that. And then you start to realize no one thinks about things the same way you do. So then you have to go back to the drawing board and, recreate certain things. And I think that you learn a lot about your customer, when you start doing that, and then you start to realize, I think you talk a lot about, storytelling, right? So if I'm going to portray something from my perspective, is it going to be interpreted the same from someone else's perspective? And I've learned, through a number of iterations of reports that's 100%, at the forefront of my mind, right when you start developing now versus, maybe a year ago.
And yeah, it's almost like it's such an interesting scenario. It's almost like you need there's like a playbook. There's almost like a playbook for integrations, like migrations or mergers in the analytics space. And it's probably, maybe more like, say, 20 years ago, it probably was like an afterthought. But now getting the data integrated into your existing reports and existing systems, I would even imagine that that's one of the more like biggest priorities, right? One of the biggest priorities if you were doing a merger or some sort of migration, that would be like top of mind for most managers, most senior leadership to make sure that they're getting the true information as quickly as possible. Even before you actually do the merger, in some cases, right? It's kind of like, man, we need to get in there and do the due diligence.
Sure, for sure. And with that, you need to, kind of freeze in historical information. And you don't want that to be shifting around, depending on how you look at it. Could be like currency, can be a big player. And if you hold currency constant to today versus what maybe currency impacts were historically. So historical information from a company that you're doing an acquisition of can be extremely complicated. Yeah.
One question I have, and this is a debate that we have internally, and also it can really differ depending on like the size of the business, because you're significant business, right? I think is it over 10 billion revenue per year, the entire business.
Yeah.
So how do you organize your workspace environment in an organization that large, right? Multiple divisions, multiple business functions. How do you, and maybe you haven't quite nailed it, I'm not sure, but like how do you get control of the workspace organization?
So I'll admit real quick that I am within a month of me starting my current role. And with that is the very, very beginning of our enterprise effort. So, my previous experience has been, with a division that's within a group that builds up to the corporation.
Right.
And, if I were to just scale it down, you would maybe think of it being the same with I'm a department, which is, one piece of the entire company. And you can probably treat it similarly. But with that, there is not as much complexity at the lower scale as there is, building it up at the corporation, which security is the first and foremost, most important piece, and how we want to regulate that, so that only the people that need it are who gets it. And, it's always the first topic of what we're going to talk about as we start to build something out. So I know I have a perfect answer for you now. Hopefully, if we get to chat again, I have a really great answer at that point. But it's really just in its development stage right now. Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And that's interesting in itself. As you're in this development stage, how are you finding the coordination across, say, different business units, or what are you finding that there's an effective way to plan out and work out your execution plan for Power BI? Is there a central analytics team who's driving it? Is it being driven by super users in each different department? What are you seeing that is working well?
So, being that, I kind of like to make this interesting comparison to Apple and Android. Apple tends to have a very closed loop. Things are built, in one central location, and you get Apple's version of it. And you have Android, which is very open source. Everyone kind of goes about, does their thing. And the best thing is what, everyone gravitates to. And that's in part, I think, where we're at right now, that there are these pockets of really talented team members going out and testing and proving that, this path works for this, and this path doesn't work for this aspect. And by that, I mean, not just, finance and accounting. It's happening in marketing and, other operations functions. And I think because of it, we're definitely learning from one another, through that process. But we do have a center of excellence team that's housed here at our corporate office, an enterprise analytics team dedicated specifically to really managing our large, aggregated data sets. They're in charge of building that aspect. I'm focusing on, getting information through our consolidated, financial system. And I think what they've started are monthly kind of just meetings of, talking about what's working, new updates that are coming through, best practices, things like that, which kind of catch everyone up at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, going about that way, you might see some scale happen a little bit faster versus, having one team of maybe 10 people. If you have a strong team, I think 10 people could get a lot done. Versus, we have a corporation of team members that are kind of just really finding the best of what we can do.
Right.
And then, some of the reports that I built were kind of getting distributed, to other locations so that they can start learning how to recreate that. Which, I'll definitely say it is a product of your work and some of the other team members as well, of Enterprise DNA. It's a lot of the logic behind report structure, right. And then we have our own, this look and feel, of our reports.
Right.
But really the core element comes from, learning through your platform.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think you touched upon another really key point that I think is essential is the styling and design.
Yeah.
If you can get some consistency there, get some consistent templates out to the team, I think that can go a long way to getting the enterprise set up to produce consistent reports and analysis quite quickly. So I think that's a sound strategy. So it's great that Enterprise DNA is having a solid impact there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like also that there's sort of like a monthly coordination call or a regular one at that enables everyone to circle back and just share best practices, share new templates, share new analysis that's being done.
Yeah, they do that, and then they're expanding it to. I think there was one session on Alteryx, so that you might learn about other tools, on top of just Power BI. I really want to see more focus be put on even just that ETL process of what others can do to tap into, the real information, not always just extracting stuff and then trying to create reports on that, but just build resiliency, and be able to be dynamic as information comes in and not put so much effort on trying to always be the person to go grab information and get it in the right spot.
Right, right. And how's your and people around you's relationship with Excel now that Power BI is starting to creep in? Because obviously, like in sort of like an accounting, financial function, Excel's always very prevalent. And so how is that transition going?
I'll be honest, if I could work in Power BI every day, that's my goal. I think just because you have that functionality of I set it up once, most often than not, I don't really have to touch it.
Right.
So it's kind of I'm not lazy, but I'm efficient, type of mindset that I appreciate about that. I might start off ad hoc querying something in Excel, just to get a quick baseline of what I'm working with. I having started this role, within a month, I'm working with my manager, and we're already identifying reports that are going to be obsolete, real fast in about a quarter. So once that piece gets stood up, there's going to be quite a workload that comes off. And then really what that's going to be replaced with is training, of then your new customers of those reports, which is not so simple. Being distributing to anyone within a corporation, it's not just, I'm just reporting to a manager and this is the report I have and this is my small team. This could be viewed by hundreds of people. So that's going to be a challenge in and of itself when you get to that point, or when we get to that point.
Yeah. And where are the quick wins that you're seeing? You were mentioning that you've got a sort of a list of reports that you think you can transition. Is there any common denominators in those early wins that you can create by transitioning from Excel dominated reporting to Power BI?
I think the quickest are going to be even things like our budgets. If you and our executive leadership department heads, manage budgets traditionally through Excel, it's about 100 and almost 200 files that get distributed, at the end of a month or a quarter. And, someone really smart developed a macro years ago that can, do all of that, and send out emails. But that in and of itself still takes potentially an hour, and so your computer's tied up for that long. I'm halfway through starting to build out that report, and that's going to be so big, and it's just budget. It's nothing crazy. But that's going to be a big win. And then it's just real standard reporting, just the stuff that you don't really have to touch a lot. You can just kind of refresh it and get that distribution out. Those are real simple stuff. But when you start layering in, you want to see things with an acquisition, without an acquisition, and certain local currencies, that you can kind of get a theme of what I'm trying to find to be dynamic. Those are things that I want to be able to put a lot of effort into and just know that it's going to be right.
And look, I from the outside looking in, like that effort will really pay dividends, because that is very, like those dynamic upgrades and updates are very difficult to do outside of Power BI. Like that's like very hard. Like you've got to create two different reports, basically two different. But Power BI can bring a lot more. Just from if you architect your solution, if you build the right model, like you can bring a lot more. You can bring that dynamic filtering in an automated way, which I presume is going to be truly powerful and eye opening for a lot of a lot of consumers and a lot of people internally.
Yeah. An example of that too is that I got to work was at the division I worked for previously. We had, at month end, traditionally you get your financial results, but then you get like, what did we spend to do business? Like, what was our cost of sales? What are our accounts payables? And things like that. So you can bring in, all that stuff at month end, or if you go and ask the right people, you might be able to get it every single day. And for the longest time, that question probably wasn't asked until, we had the sponsorship to start pushing on this type of reporting. Those answers started to turn into yes. And at that point within that division, you could see what we spent yesterday, every single day for a year. That we have never had that type of insight. And then going through, some of your courses, I started to get ideas of, analyzing who we purchase from within all of our locations. Are you getting the best rate for some of those products? Do we buy the same thing from different vendors? What are the windows that we pay it? Are we going to try and extend those payment periods? You can hold cash and deploy it somewhere else. So those are some of the analytical opportunities that our business started to get just by getting it from a daily, cadence. And you can be super, super diligent, about the way that you spend and then the way that you just, run your business. Anyway,
Yeah, I love hearing examples like that. I mean, that is, and I see that all the time. I've seen that for years and years and years, is that with this scale that you can bring to your analytical function or just the general data insights, it's not just about the sort of report itself. It's the scale in behind the report, and that scale enables you to find these new insights that traditionally you'd never really see. They wouldn't be that obvious. Like they're true optimizations. Like you can really create that those significant optimizations within the business because of just the far greater visibility you have over your data, and that was only enabled by the scale that is underpinning that the analysis that you can now do within Power BI. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, it's a multiplier. Like it just enables you to those optimizations quicker, and then you find other things to analyze. Just like those examples you were given, right? You find one thing and you realize, oh, okay, let's dig deeper. Let's actually look into the pricing structure or the materials that we're selling from which suppliers, and those insights are just very, very difficult to drill down into traditionally, right?
Yeah, and even one step further, like a governance perspective too. Being in a public company, there's a lot of regulation that happens. We actually really want to protect the assets within the business, and with that we have controls of which you'll test throughout the year, but having that information right in front of you, for as often as it is, you can perform those tests randomly, because you can just set up a good friend of mine set up just an automated test of spending that someone can do with a company car, and just make sure that they're staying within the bounds that's set up by the corporation, and it just automatically runs out, grabs 10 samples from a certain period of time, and just says, do these meet all the criteria? If not, it highlights. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, you're able to then catch anything that might be a question so much faster than if you just dedicate a team to then go and dive through information and just try and do your check. Yeah.
Yep. Totally agree. Auditing, governance, all of those things, due to that scale, become much easier to monitor, and you can just do more of it more effectively. So yeah, I see that. I see that constantly. I loved the scenario, and this is a really unique one due to the size of the business, is that you're budgeting. So I'm guessing here where you send out monthly these budgeting forms or something, and everyone fills in what the budgets are. Maybe like forward-looking budgets for the quarter or for the year. I'm obviously not sure exactly, but I'm just giving a scenario here. And so what's the vision there to manage that better? Because when I hear that, and you're using historical tools like Excel for that, I think you can reimagine it. You can reimagine the entire thing, right? You could almost create and this is outside of just Power BI. You could create a Power app. You could create Power. You could use Power Automate to collate all that information into a file that then could just be pushed into Power BI. Like you could totally reimagine that entire thing. So I'm wondering if that is on the cards, or if some of that has already been initiated.
So as far as the budgets go, we will set our full year budget, months before the preceding. And then, really what it's trying to show is year to date within the month, are we above or below that budget? And I don't know that there has been any pour thought into, what are we going to do next with it? I think that should be something we're going to bring up here soon.
Yeah. Is
but
Power Platform on the like is that somewhere in the being in the consideration process?
like through Power Apps.
Yeah, Power Apps, Power Automate.
I try to look into Power Automate. I'm still learning, that path a little bit more. I have not done so much into Power Apps yet. So
right. Yeah, nice. Well, that maybe that's the next step. I mean,
yeah,
what Microsoft are doing, I think, with the Power Platform is that they're just empowering the analyst, the data analyst, right? And not only are they empowering us with this amazing analytics tool and visualization tool with Power BI, they're also empowering us with a way to capture data more effectively, and then a way to automate processes more effectively. And what that, and like for the individual, what that enables is really, in my eyes, like superpowers, right? Like you can reimagine entire processes and reimagine how optimized they can be. And then, you could layer on, if you really wanted to, you could look into sort of no code machine learning type features that are starting to be enabled as well within the online service, but also a little bit within Azure. I mean, it really is mind blowing how within the space of about 5 to 6 years, the Excel user, the data analyst can really actually absolutely transform how processes and actions are taken within organizations. So maybe you're still early on the journey there, but I think it's a natural progression, right? They're all like synced. They're all under the Microsoft roof, so it becomes a natural extension, I think, and that's what we're seeing. That's also why we've, in the last sort of 18 months, really expanded our own, at Enterprise DNA. We came to that realization as well. It's like, wow, right. It's just massive integrations between all these tools. Like Microsoft's doing a fantastic job. Still there's still improvements that can be made, no doubt about it. But they're coming a long way with the ecosystem around Power BI. Yeah. What else? What other unique insights do you think you can share with us regarding your Power BI journey, or the organization's Power BI journey up until now?
Maybe I'll just take a step back and just talk a little bit about, my first integration at all of what Power BI is. And I'll say too that it doesn't take long to find Enterprise DNA on YouTube now. Mm-hmm. It was not very hard, probably a year and a half ago. But between your platform and a few others that were out there, it was like, I didn't know where to start at all.
Right.
And I think that I can tell, some people might find that similarly. And I think that when I was able to become, a member of your platform, it was so much easier to actually find the content that starts from zero, going into being able to develop a report. And I've been asked many times to put together like a playlist, if I want to start someone else fresh, where do they begin? One of the first things I do are I send over, a copy, I think of, it's like a full PDF DAX, template that you guys have. And, I send that over with, I think it's like Power BI for beginners. It's like this whole list of videos. And, I don't recommend it to a lot of people, but I'll just like throw it on in the car and just listen to it, and as I'm driving, because I think it was, it helped to just kind of immerse yourself into hearing over and over and over again about the whole new context. Thinking about DAX, in your mind versus being able to see it in a table as a result of, bringing things together. And, I think what helped so much was time that you take to restate certain things that are really important in a video. One of those being context, thinking about the context of the situation. What am I trying to accomplish? And the information, behind how measures or, relationships work. The amount of times that you would reiterate things like that just help, really stick it in the back of your mind. It probably was 3 or 4 months of just watching videos before I really started trying to the whole lot of it. And then once you actually get it into practice, it can happen really fast, and it just being, you start to really click on what does it mean to write certain measures and how much information should I be loading versus loading everything and only what I need. And that's a lot of stuff that you don't really pick up from reading, in my opinion, is going out and Googling information and finding best practices. Yeah. So
those are some really, really interesting, and I appreciate the feedback, and it's so true though. It's so true. Like you would think that from an online educator's point of view, that having a business in this space would be quite difficult because there's so much information out there for free, and there's like everything's like content and information in a lot of cases could be considered a commodity these days, right? Because you could just like find it. But the reality is with Power BI, it's not, if we want to successfully deploy a Power BI solution, there's no Googling that. There's no Googling, how do I architect my workspaces effectively using data flows and Power BI data sets, and how does that suit me? How does that suit my organization specifically? There's some really, I'm trying to think of the word, but it's kind of, it's just like non-Googleable. It's you need to learn how to be a solution creator, and that requires, and I personally just had learned this over time, just, dealing with my own development, dealing with forum questions, dealing with customer advisory work we do, dealing with customer trainings that we do. And the framework we've developed over time is not that, it's not a commodity. It's something that you need to learn and then have the creative mind around to deploy it to your specific situation.
Sure.
That's why and it continually gets reiterated to me. I mean, certainly from your explanation just before, but also I held a Power BI accelerator with Brian Julius a couple of weeks ago, and you can just tell by the interactions that we had during that accelerator. I mean, there was about 60 people on the live call, and we were having discussions, and there's just so many aha moments when we're talking about the model or the relationships or how to like where to position certain tables within your model and what relationships to create between them. How to use the query editor to optimize your tables for Power BI. So, I mean, those are a lot of like quite specifics, but it's how do they all tie in together? And there's no like one answer there. There's how do you manage that within your own environment? Like it's all unique. It requires some creativity, right? And some true understanding of what Power BI can do, but also how Power BI interacts with your own data and with your own environment. And so, yeah, it's so interesting. I really appreciate those points there, because the other interesting insight that I have from that is that, and I try and reiterate, we try and reiterate as much as we can, is that the easiest thing to Google in Power BI is DAX formulas, right? That's the easiest thing to Google. You just like type it into Google and you get an answer. But the reality is that you need to know the context. You need to understand so much more than like the actual formula, right? And that is very different to Excel. It's very different to old tools that you might use for analysis. And again, that's where having an underlying framework that you can sort of embed into your mind, which you seem to do quite early on, having that is a true advantage. It's a real advantage to speeding up your skill development with Power BI specifically.
Yeah, and I will add on to that the our M functions in Power Query.
Mm-hmm.
The more of that, the better. I mean, there's so much power. Not to be like cliche about that, but there is so much benefit to doing as much in there as you can to do only the amount of DAX that you need to do. It makes my model run better. I think it has richer information, when you get it loaded in properly. And the more content where you can get on that and learn, because it's that also is something that's really hard to Google specifically. Because there are so many unique nuances that you can do in there that I'm sure it's hard to develop content that's going to be, general enough to apply to a lot of situations. But yeah, that's something I'd love to see more of too.
Yeah, and then that just drills into the point again, doesn't it? Is that it's not like Power BI. You don't solve something singularly, like with a formula. Or with one relationship. It's a total package. It's the total. We have our framework is, well, it was initially like the 4-pillar framework. We had the query editor, data modeling, DAX calculations, and reports and visualization. We've actually added on one at the beginning, another pillar at the beginning, and another pillar at the end, because architecting your solution is equally as important as well. And you need to architect your solution well, utilize workspace design, data flows if you can, Power BI data sets. There's so many different ways that you can organize things suitable for your own deployment. And then the query editor, you're right. The query editor needs to be used far more extensively than pretty much everyone realizes. Your like formulas should be simple. Formulas should be simple. If you're having to spend hours working out complex formulas, something's not, I keep saying this, like something's not right. Something's not right with your data. Your model's probably is not intuitive enough. Those are some really big learnings that we've had over the years, and we just try and really reiterate as much as we possibly can. I even think, I'm not sure if you've heard of this tool called ChatGPT. It's like the latest and greatest AI that's out there. It can write formulas for you, almost. The reality is, even with that new ability to write formulas, you still need to know how to architect. You still need to know how to build a framework into how you develop inside of Power BI. It's just not there's no singular solution, right? So I know I'm sort of rambling on a little bit, but these are some really interesting insights that we've learned over the years and really tried to reiterate in a lot of our training, a lot of our live events that we hold. And I mean, last week I even had a webinar that I dedicated to architecting Power BI. Like that was my webinar. How do you architect? It is so important. It is literally so important. And I did have more of those because of just how important it is. And I presume, like from your end, it can be quite a daunting task to think about how to architect an entire enterprise deployment. But you can start small. You can start small, start simple, and iterate. That is also one of the true benefits of Power BI too.
Yeah. It's gonna be massive.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on the future of this space and Power BI? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I did listen to your podcast recently about the ChatGPT. That did get my mind going. I know that the external tools, that have been under development to try and automate the development process. That sounds interesting. It's a little bit nerve wracking. What results you're going to get back, and are you going to go through some type of validation process anyways to write a measure and ensure that it comes back correctly? But additionally, the amount of updates that come through Microsoft is something that's also hard to keep up with. It's, I want to take advantage of, like when field parameters came out, sure, I'm going to do the update. And what comes with it is what it is. But the amount is kind of like Apple, like the amount of updates that they can push out, can almost feel overwhelming. Yeah. Cause I'm sure you have to redevelop content at some point when something becomes obsolete. And then, I might realize that something I set up, is now either not supported, or it just doesn't make sense to do it that way anymore. So, I'm really trying to keep my finger on the pulse and listen to content as it comes out, updates through whoever publishes it. It's growing faster than, and I can keep track of. I'm just a daily user, so I can't even imagine, even from an instructive point of view, I'm highly manageable.
Yeah, it can honestly be challenging, and particularly when Power BI decides to do like a color change, like they did recently. It's now everything's green, so everything that we have is like outdated, and we've got about like 1,000 hours of content. That is annoying. That is really challenging. But one thing that I decided very early on was that we wanted to really focus on evergreen type content that would last. And that, I think, was a sound strategy because of all of these updates. Like the updates have just accelerated really, right? Like, and even when you think about the entire ecosystem around Power BI, the Power Platform, so on and so forth. So a lot of the foundational topics and content that we've created, even 4 years ago, 5 years ago, nothing's changed. Like literally nothing has changed. The key infrastructure around Power BI, I don't think is going to change. Like you've got Power BI Desktop, you've got Power BI Online Service, you've got Power BI mobile applications, and then now you've got this ecosystem of Power Apps and all the rest of it. The key infrastructure, I don't think is going to change. Yes, there can be like different features that are added that can make a big difference, different functions that can be added. A lot of those have been added. But things like how you need to think about context has not changed. How functions work in different types of context. That like none of that is going to change. So we really drill down into that, and if a new feature like field parameters comes along, that's just value add in my point of view. And then the way we try and integrate that is more so from events. And then if we go and redo an entire course, we'll obviously add it in there. But look, I agree with you. I think it can be overwhelming, but I think that is just the reality these days, right? And you've got to think through building. It's just like building a house, right? Like there's always these new types of furniture that you can add to your house. There's always new types of styling you can add to your house, but you want to make sure that the infrastructure is really sound. The foundation is really sound to how you develop your analytical implementations. And I think that's the key things to focus on, and then look to those value added features to add that additional insight, or to add that different experience, that user experience to your output. That's what I would suggest there. Is there anything that sort of really excites you about the future? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about automation there. I mean, I would say that's probably the biggest thing that excites me, but is there anything around that specifically or anything else? Something that I think fun that's going to be coming up here that we're going to try and tackle is, we have a ton of economics data, macro, just
really want to just understand what's happening in the world, which affects our orders, right? And what we can get shipped out to our customers. And historically, those two thought processes aren't intertwined into one product that we deliver. So on top of task of standing this up, there's also going to be, an initiative where we try and bring in the economic impacts daily with our daily orders and try and just see what can we interpret from that information. How, can we get ahead of, crazy things that are happening in other parts of the world that you wouldn't know because you go to bed and wake up and it happened. How can we be more alive with the world around us, as well as our specific customers, placing orders. So that's something that's going to be massive. We can stand that up. And that's going to be something that's totally new to the corporation from just an analytical perspective, but then also from a business management perspective.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting. It's almost like advanced forecasting.
Yes,
bringing in a range of different variables, that non-traditional variables that do create an impact. And I presume you could eventually, if you got to this point, you could build some sort of like machine learning model that took all the inputs and then was able to give you, because machine learning is great for prediction, right? Like it's a prediction machine, right? That's really what it is, right? So if you could obtain all that data, you could actually get some predictive output that could be integrated into the actual on the ground, like real world insights that you've developed with the internal data you're seeing.
Yeah, we have a fantastic team member that manages a full AI model, forecasting model. And so that's going to be really where the link goes to. And it's just going to really create some interesting insights. It's really cool work that they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to be a part of that, particularly in such a large organization, because, you've obviously got the resources, you've probably got a lot of the, a lot of challenges too, bureaucracy, etc. But at least you can build a lot of, that when you really build scale into a large organization, it can be amazing what you can get to, right? So it's a great spot to be, and I guess you feel the same way.
Yeah, and I'll say too, our executive sponsorship is totally, just on board with the direction and the opportunities that they see, available to us. And there is no pedals in the metal. There's no stopping this train. So it's going to be cool.
So the executives have a realization of the impact data, like a real data focus, data. I like to say like data immersion, like being immersed in your data, that impact it can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the other thing that I love, and like we do this internally, is I have Power BI integrated into my Microsoft Teams, and I truly feel just by that, having that app right there, I'm more immersed in my data than I've ever been in our own internal data. I mean, we're a small business, but I am one click away to all of the key insights that I would want to see. I can walk in the morning, chat to all my team, and then I can click to my analytics and see, oh, okay, this is how we're tracking this. This is how we're tracking this quarter. This is how many emails have come in overnight. This is how many individuals have purchased versus teams. This is how our sales pipeline. It's all just one click away. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And any business function, any small business, any large business can find these immersive wins all over the place. And just talking to you reiterates that point to me, and how exciting. We're just getting started here, aren't we? Like, it's so exciting what can be done and what is going to be enabled in the future by building scale into the analytics operations.
And then even just having an application on your phone, when you're traveling or something, you can just open that up and it's it's just like any other application you have on there, but you're tied in directly to the most recent information, which you normally have to dig through your email and find when the report was sent and, look at it and things like that. It's like there's tons of that, even just in that simply an app being on your phone that you can just open up and look at.
So true.
Or whatever you use. Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, that is so true. Like I've got a big iPhone. I've got like the biggest iPhone you can have. And I was downstairs. Before our podcast, I was downstairs. I was having a coffee. I just jumped onto Power BI on my phone, checked a few of the overnight metrics that I'm interested in. I've got everything set up in my report to navigate around to, within my Power BI app to all the different things that I'm interested in. I mean, that's kind of incredible, isn't it? It is so amazing. Like,
absolutely,
it wasn't even possible like before Power BI existed, right? Like, it wasn't even possible. And now you are literally, I'm in a cafe having a coffee, and I'm like looking at all my metrics, like with a few clicks. Just mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
And then, that's just the start of it. I mean, there's so much more we could do even within our business. And just think about that when you think about your, like the scale of your business. I mean, it's just like everyone's got processes that can be managed better, automated, it's so exciting. And then when you start layering on some of these AI innovations, I mean, we're going to just be able to query. We're literally going to be able to write in Microsoft Teams, hey, can you analyze this? And it will probably show you a chart. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's something I want to get more into with my reports, is even just the questioning of information, just to give it just a natural language, right to your data and see what pops out. And I've played with it a few times. It's kind of a little cumbersome, to get through it. But sometimes if you ask the right question, it's really cool.
Yeah.
How that spits out.
Well, I would say like this ChatGPT has just blown my mind of like how smart that and all it's going to take is, I mean, my vision now, like prior to this, I wouldn't have thought this, but my vision now is that the AI models are getting so good that you'll be able to basically just feed all of your data, like all of your data and all of your analytics, you'll be able to feed it into in a system. It will read it all, and then you'll be able to ask it questions, and it will probably come back to you with like a written answer that sort of details it for you. I mean, you'd have to think that's inevitable, right? Like just from what I've seen. I mean, GTP that stands for like general purpose technology, I think. So imagine if it's not general. Imagine if it's like specific, like a really specific niche down purpose technology where it's like literally just read your own internal data. And it's telling you how to optimize things, it's just like crazy. It is so inevitable. I mean, maybe it's going to take a few years till we get to that point, but it's coming, man. It's coming. And I don't see that as a threat or anything. I see that as just a massive opportunity. I mean, there is just optimizations galore everywhere you look in any business, in literally any business, big or small. There's tons of optimizations, and it's just going to be a productivity multiplier, like a force multiplier for everyone. It's quite amazing. Sorry, I'm rambling on my side. Latest and greatest technologies. I would say just to finish. I don't know we've just gone past the hour here, but I'm still as excited about the future of this space than I was when I started Enterprise DNA, because of like all these emerging things that are coming out. I mean, another one that I saw the other day. I watched a video of someone asked it asked Midjourney, which is this like visualization AI technology. It's called Midjourney if you want to look it up. They asked it to create a dashboard design, and you should see the dashboard designs this thing came up with. It was like they were beautifully designed dashboards. It was unbelievable. They were like these like artistic dashboards, not something that you could like build in Power BI today, but I mean, man, if an AI can create that, and that's like a general purpose. I mean, imagine if you had an AI that was just like, go and look at all the dashboards that have been created online, and then just spit out. You'll be able to ask, I want this color, I want this theme, I want this styling. It will spit out like this amazing dashboard design that you could embed into the back of your Power BI report. I mean, that's pretty crazy. That is pretty damn crazy. And I almost think that my thoughts are over the weekend when I saw this video, I was like, wow, we need to do that. Like enterprise DNA needs to create that AI bot. Like we need to provide that. That can be such a value add service from our end. So anyway, something to think about. We'll have to find the budget. We have to find the budget to developing our own AI. Anyway, Greg, hey, I've really enjoyed our chat, and I think you've got a really amazing story. So thanks for sharing and sharing your insights. Is there any final thoughts?
Like I said, I really feel like I'm just getting started on this, and I am so excited for the future. It's not only enterprise DNA, but just thanks to everyone on the forums that ask questions that help everyone. It's really a special community out there that just is always, rich in learning and wanting to help and push each other forward. So, I look forward to being a part of it more. And thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And I'm really glad that that our community is enabling that, and it's always been it's always been part of the vision to have that as part of enterprise DNA, and hopefully we can do more of it and scale it more to impact more people. That's definitely our goal. So yeah, thanks for also being a part of the community. It's great to have you on board, and really appreciate you joining me on today's podcast. Okay, let's wrap up. Thank you, Greg. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite listening channel for podcasts, and look out for some more content coming in the new year. Well, this will be our last one, I think, or this will be my last one before last recording before the end of 2022. So have a great Christmas, everyone. If you listened to this before, but if not, hopefully you have had a good Christmas and New Year and started 2023 well. Okay, thanks everyone.